Good morning, my lovelies. Okay, I want to start this video by saying, obviously, you can tell that there's a little difference in my setup. I am working on some new ways to do things for you guys and how to handle everything. Okay. And see, I'm already off to a bad start. But I'm not sure how this is going to work, how I'm going to like it, if I'm going to like it. So we'll see. Second, I want to say my sinuses are at 100 today. It's crazy. I've taken so much medicine and still cannot seem to get it. Third, it is rainy, dreary, nasty. So one, the lighting might be a little different. I think it's going to be okay. Two, my dogs are stuck in the house and they're not happy. So, but I would rather deal with dogs that aren't happy, maybe barking their head off, and than muddy, nasty dogs. So we'll deal with it. So if I do all this and I absolutely hate it, you're probably going to see me come back and I already have my makeup on and a full face. This is starting wonderful. But a full face, and I will just redo the whole episode. So this is the intro. But we're going to be doing an Evil Lives here today, and we're going to try this new setup, guys. So wish me luck. Here we go. Okay, so today we are doing the ID channel's Evil Lives Here, and this is season 2, episode 8, titled Our House of Horrors. So this was originally aired March 5th, 2017. Now, I want to start this episode by saying that I struggled with this a lot, and I just want to put this out here because it's just different. So what I want to say is this was a difficult episode, and I'm very fortunate that I could not relate to this episode. So we'll leave it there. There's really not a lot of trigger warnings. Obviously, we talk about some assault and rape, but not in detail. So it's going to be pretty vague as far as this is what's going on, but it's not the main point of the story. But like I was saying, I'm very fortunate I cannot relate to this story and this woman that's going to be telling us this story. I've never been in this position to know what I would do. So I could sit here and say, hell no, no way would I put up, and I truly believe that there's no way I would have put up with this or done what she's done. But I'm not going to take anything away from her because I'm only speaking words, and I can say it with complete confidence and think for everything that I'm worth that this is what I would do. But she's lived it, and this is what she did. So I'm going to try not to judge her actions and how she's taken care of and doing what she has to do. And if I do become a little judgmental, please ignore me. I'm going to do my best not to. But I wanted to be upfront with you. I'm going to try to stay as neutral as I can considering the story that I'm about to tell you. And yeah, that's it. So we're going to start the story talking to Alice Swafford. And she's the narrator of this episode. And she begins by telling us that she was looking for a Prince Charming. Now, I mean, come on, aren't we all at one point in time looking for our Prince, Princess Charming, our happily ever after? But I believe what she did is she put blinders on in looking for that, and instead the journey that she went on led her into just darkness, is what she calls it, darkness. So yeah, when you pursue a fairy tale, you can sometimes find that nightmare. And in her case, that's exactly what happened. So this is the first time she has told her story on camera. And like I said, this is 2017. So since then, I know she has told her story more, which we'll talk about later. But at this time, this was the first time she's really told her story. And she said she didn't really know the person she married. She married a sociopath. Isn't that something we all want to know? So she says that she starts to tell us how she met William. So William is the bad guy in this story, and it's going to be her eventual husband. And she says that, you know, at first there was some really weird things, and she noticed them. But she, you know, I won't say we're all, I don't know if I've honestly thought this, but she's like, she thought that some of his weirdness, she could change, or she can help him or fix it or whatever it is. So yeah, she thought that she could help him. You know, she knew he wasn't normal, but she chose to, and I don't want to say ignore the signs, she chose to overlook them, and maybe in Webster's dictionary it might mean the exact same thing. But she saw them, she acknowledged them, but she chose to overlook them, and hoping that she could, you know, help him. You know, I hate to say the word fix, but maybe even fix him, you know? So it was just kind of odd. But she says her biggest mistake is judging a book by its cover. She saw what she wanted to see, and I know we've all done that. But she said when she first met him, he was a gentleman. He came from a well-to-do family. Only one of few families, that's what I mean to say, that owned their own home and had 2 cars, you know. So she saw this as a sign that, you know, he was, I don't know, was she looking for a well-to-do or someone that could take care of her? I'm not sure. But she said he was smart, he was well-spoken, and she thought, well, he had to be a good person. So the man in question in this story's name is William, and I'm probably going to mispronounce his last name, but we'll try it. Choice, Choyce. So she talks about a few things that I find immediately maybe off-putting, or at least something to, you know, note in your noggin and say, yeah, that's probably something I should keep an eye on. There's a few things here that are odd. But she says, for instance, when she met his family for the first time, they were having Mother's Day. I think she said it was like some kind of holiday like that, and I think she said it was Mother's Day. And it's the first time she was meeting his mother and father and blah, blah, blah. She said that they were having a nice time, and she happened to walk into, well, she was in the doorway in the reenactment, and it showed her just kind of listening to a conversation with William and his mother. And William was trying to, I guess, you know, sneak some cookies that were just coming out of the oven, and his mom was telling him, you know, he can't have those cookies. Whatever, you know, when you try to go in there and you get some, and mom's like smacking your hand, telling you, not now, you know, not yet. And she was trying to get him out of the kitchen. But honestly, that's not really the weird thing, because that's pretty much normal. I mean, you know, come on, we've all done that. I've smacked my kids' hands when they've tried to steal something out of the oven, you know, fresh out of the oven. I don't really find that as off-putting. But she said William leaned in to give his mother a hug and a kiss on the cheek, and she got extremely upset. Like, Alice was like, it was really over the top. She told her never to touch him again, to get out of the room, and, you know, whatever. And, you know, Alice is like, I didn't know what happened. Had he insulted her? Did he touch her inappropriate? She's like, I was really at a loss at what just happened. And she said, and he wasn't, you know, he saw her there, he saw that she saw it, but he was not willing to discuss what had just happened. So she didn't know. She never found out really what was going on. And I'm telling you, this to me is very interesting. I want to know, like, what what the story is with William and his mom, and that is something that I do look into later because it's never mentioned again. I mean, Alice says, you know, he never wanted to talk about it. He never wanted to bring it up, so she dropped it, and it was just like the end of it, which, better woman than I am, because I'd be like, no, bitch, what the hell just happened? Why did your mom just treat you that way? What did you do? What did she do? I know I would do that. I don't even have to sit here and say that, not being in that position, I know my curiosity would have got the best of me. But she let it drop, and it's not mentioned again, so I did specifically look into the relationship of William and his mother. Now, excuse me, Alice then talks about another time that William had come in and was going to surprise her, and he wanted to take her for a ride to somewhere special. So she was excited. You know, she loves surprises, and he wouldn't tell her what was going on, and you know, she was like really, really excited, and instead he took her to a strip club. And she said she was very uncomfortable, which, you know, you get to listen to her, you could tell that these kind of things would not be something she would do. I mean, I could tell this by watching this episode, that this was not something Alice was going to enjoy. And she said the more they were there, she could tell that, you know, it was something he did enjoy. And she could tell that he knew the people there and got along with everybody. So it was something he did regularly. And he was very familiar with the area and the people and the girls. She even made the statement that, you know, he was in his element. And but she was very uncomfortable. She wanted to leave, and he wouldn't. You know, he was like, oh no, we're here, we're having fun, whatever. So he kind of oblivious, you know. But she knew that there was, and this will come into play, his obsession with this kind of thing. But she knew it going in, and she never really thought it was as bad as it was. So then she got pregnant with her daughter, Crystal. And, let's see. Then they moved in together. And she started really noticing his porn addiction was really intensive. And he was very obsessive about his porn. And he would even buy her, and in her words, buy her clothes that prostitutes would wear. So, she was not happy. She said he bought her some hooker boots and just some really skimpy other things, and it was just not her. So again, I think he's kind of really missing the obvious signs here, right? This is not something she would enjoy or she wants to be a part of, and yet he's like kind of really pushing it because it's something he wants her to be a part of, I guess. It's just how I took it. He wanted her to be a part of it, so he was really kind of pushing that whole thing. I mean, it was just like, that's what he wanted, so that's what he was doing. But she said there was one time he called her into, he was in the other room watching the video, and he called her in. He wanted her to watch it with her, and he didn't know what it was, or she didn't know what it was, excuse me. And she sat down, and he's watching a porn, and not just any porn. She said this was really gross. She said it was, I took it as torture porn. She never said those exact words, but from what she was saying and things that was going on, you know, about the girl screaming and pain and stuff, it just sounded to me like it was torture porn. So she didn't say it, but that's how I took it. But she said he wanted her to watch it so they can spice up their sex life. And I did do air quotes in case you're listening and not watching. But Alice was very uncomfortable. Again, he completely missed the whole sign of what his girlfriend, at the time they weren't married yet, was into and what she liked and what she didn't like. Because this was not something she wanted to be a part of. So, you know, and I think in the reenactment she told him he was sick, which I don't know if it's really what she did, or if she did, I don't really know if it would have been the right thing to say. That's beside the point. But, you know, she said, and this was really weird. She said, that she could see how his porn addiction was harmless. And this next thing that she talks about, she says, I could see how it would be harmless. She said, and I'm going to tell you what she did, and I'm going to tell you my poor husband would have been shit out of luck if he ever asked me to do something like this. But, and I love makeup, but that tells you anything, I would not do this. But she said, this next part she thought was pretty harmless. If it made him happy, she was happy to do it. So every morning, he required her to get up, and before she brushed her teeth, washed her face, took a shower, anything, put on red lipstick. She had to have red lipstick on. And she had to have that red lipstick on all day. She had to reapply it. She had to have it, you know, on. And she said, not only that, she said, my nails, you know, fingernails, toenails had to be red. She said, he was obsessed with me having this red nail and lips. And she's like, you know, I thought it was odd, but it was harmless. You know, it made him happy. I was glad to do it. Okay. And yeah, I mean, to me, this was just one of his fetishes, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious he had this fetish, and the red, he really thought made her look a certain way, and that's what he wanted. So she did. I mean, that's exactly what she did. She gave him what he wanted, and was okay with it, I guess. I mean, she thought it was weird, but it wasn't anything too weird. It wasn't that weird, right? So yeah. But like I said, I love makeup. I do makeup all the time. I do makeup just to be at home some days, not as often as I used to. But even I would have a problem with getting up every morning before I brushed my teeth, you know, washed my face before I did anything like that. You want me to put on this red lipstick? And red lipstick's very hard to pull off. It really is. Like, I found a red lip stain that I really like, that I can pretty much do pretty good with. But red lipstick's hard to pull off. But I guess that's beside the point, right? So she noticed all of these signs. The porn, his addiction, his fetishes, his, you know, and she kept making excuses for him. And to a point, I can understand her rationale, right? There were some pretty significant signs, but she wanted to try to validate them or think she can fix them. Because at this point, they live together, they have a kid, and she's wanting a future with him. So I can get overlooking some things in the sense that it can be better. So I get that. And she says that Alice says that William was a good father. I'm sorry, because I'm sitting here trying to think of what I got to do, and I think I'm going to do my lashes off camera. But with things between them became harder as she found that he associated with prostitutes. Now, she says associated with prostitutes, and then she says they were just friends, and I'm like, okay. But, and no matter what she said, because she did not like that he associated with them. Like, she was a good Christian woman. She did not approve. She did not want this in her family, around her children. But the more she complained and wanted him to back away from them and stop associating with them, he wouldn't. And then the one thing that happens that I know for a fact Erin would blow her mind. And I'm going to get my eyes on. We'll be right back to tell you. Okay, so I was gone a whole lot longer than you realize. But lashes are on and we are ready to go. So, as I mentioned before, just a few seconds ago for you, she tells a story of something that happened that would really be it for me. But, so, she talks a lot about her working. And I don't know, they never mentioned what he did, and I cannot remember if I found that at the end. It's like completely blank, so I don't know right now what he did for a living. And I know she worked at some kind of manufacturing something, but anyway, she worked a lot. So one day she decided to go home for lunch, and I don't, I don't think this was something she did often, but she had decided to go home for lunch, and she said it was really weird. She got home and their bedroom door was shut and locked. And she said it was never shut and locked, So she starts pounding on the door, asking, William if he was in there. She said he was being really quiet on the other end, but she said, I knew he was there. So he finally opens the door, and he's got it cracked, so she can't see. And he's like, well, what are you doing home? Whatever. And she's like, she's laughing it off. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And she kind of opens the door, and lo and behold, he is in there with a prostitute in their bed. So, yeah. So she completely loses her shit. He does the whole, oh, this isn't what it seems. It's not what it looks like. This. She was half dressed in the reenactment, but come on, we don't know if she was half dressed or not. Anyway, so she loses her shit, as she should. And the one thing she does here that seems so completely out of character, though. So she talks about how they had guns in the house. And she said she knew that he kept a gun. And the gun becomes an important thing later. So I guess that's why they really kind of made a big deal out of them having a gun, her doing this. But so she grabs the gun out of their closet and points it at the woman in her bed. And she's not pointing it at the guy. I never understood that. Why you don't go after the one that's actually done you wrong, not the woman. But anyways, so she's pointing it at her, threatening her, whatever. And of course that woman gets her stuff and runs, whatever. So, he talks her down. She gives him the gun. All's well that ends well, right? But she later says she realizes she believed his apologies and believed him and never broke off their engagement and actually married him through all of that, even finding another woman in her bed. She went on and married him. She said she married him for better or worse, and that's what she got. She said one time, one time when they were married, they're in bed, and he says something like, can I tell you something? And she's like, yes, we tell each other everything. Right. And he makes this comment that he says, he tells her he always wondered what it would be like to have sex with his mother. I'm just going to set that there for a second. Let you really, really stew on that. Because that's a lot, right? And I really have nothing. That's just a lot. And she's, she was really like, what? Just like taken aback by it. And he's like, oh, I'm just kidding, just talking to whatever, that he is trying to tell her so, she forgets about it like she does a lot of the stuff he does. And she lets it go. And he goes on with his day. And Alice even mentions that at that moment she realized she didn't know the man she married. And I'm like, maybe you did. You knew these things again. So I started thinking, I'm going back to the whole mother incident, and I'm like, could this be part of why she reacted the way she did to him? I mean, yeah, it kind of just really made me wonder even more about the mother situation, right? Okay, so then Alice is telling us that during the marriage, William got to the point where he went out every night. He would go for a walk or whatever. But she said he would put on his overcoat. So she said even if it was hot, she said he would put that overcoat on. He would put on his hat and always take his gun with him when he went out. And she said, there'd be times he'd be out for hours. And she would ask him, where you been? What were you doing? And he would never talk about it. Basically made her feel like it was none of her business. So she said it got to the point where he was doing it so often that her and the daughter, Crystal, started enjoying the time that he was away. And I'm like, okay. Because she said it was really just becoming very uncomfortable in the house. And, the free time, and I've heard this in many of the stories that I've covered, something's going on, but at that point, you're so happy for a little bit of away time, some free time for yourself, that you're not going to question it too much. And she didn't. And she said, but there was one time, and I think she said it happened in April, close to Easter weekend. He went out one night and didn't come back. So he went out on a Friday and didn't come home until Sunday night. But when she questioned him, which of course, and I will say, I am pretty sure this happened before cell phones and everything, which I think I get those dates for you. If not, I failed in everything if I didn't get you those dates, but I think it's in the 80s when all this was happening. So she couldn't call him, but he just disappears. I mean, she has no idea where he's at for those days. And even somebody that's enjoying their time away, or away from their significant other that is pretty much lost his damn mind, that is a little much, right? So she said she's questioning him and asking him where he went, what was he doing, and all he would tell her that he went to Reno for the weekend. And he kind of just told her it was none of her business, and she didn't question him again. So now we're hearing from their child, their daughter, Crystal, who is not a child. She's a grown adult at this point. So, yeah, I mean, this happened in the early 80s. It had to, or in the 80s. I won't say early. It didn't necessarily have to be early, but. So, this is the first time she's ever talked about this on camera. And I'm thinking, they said that about the mother, and I will say that both of them get over their camera shyness, or I don't know, I won't say camera shyness, but they do talk about this again and again, which is fine. It's their story to tell, right? But she says that she's always been nervous to talk about her father because she's always known he was a monster, and in fact, she grew up consistently terrified of him. So, I mean, this is a total different side to what Alice is telling us, because he's not been abusive to Alice yet. I mean, as far as, yes, mentally, but not physically. So he's not been physically abusive. He's a terrible person. He's a terrible husband, but he's not laid hands on her. So now we're hearing that, in fact, he was doing that to their daughter. Okay. So she's telling the story of the first time he physically hit her. And, oh my gosh, she doesn't say how old she is. I mean, the reenactment made her look preteen, probably 11, 12, around that. But again, you can only take those reenactments with a grain of salt. Really never can tell exactly how old they are. Sorry, I completely forgot this. So anyways, she said that one weekend or one night, her cousin was spending the night. And it was time for them to go get washed up. And her dad gave them some towels. One for her, one for her cousin. Well, Crystal says that, not thinking about it, she used the towel that he had gave her to give the cousin. And the cousin used her towel. Something so simple, right? She just used the wrong towel. And he come in after he found out that she had done it. Told the cousin to get out and proceeded to beat her because she used the wrong towel. And disrespected him because she didn't use the towel he gave her. And degraded her, called her all kinds of names, stupid, and just all kinds of stuff. And that was pretty much how the whole thing got started as far as the abuse. So, I mean, it's kind of odd to me that the abuse started when she was that age and not younger. But hopefully that is true and he wasn't abusing her younger, right? I mean, you got to kind of think of some silver linings, and I hope the silver lining in this story is that if he beat her, he didn't do it when she was really young and could have killed her. So anyways, Crystal says that she tried to steer clear of him and not give him any reason to be mad at her, because if he was, you know, he would start calling her names and he'd hit her and whatever. But he always found some reason to criticize her. I mean, there was nothing she could do was right. Everything she did, he found wrong and pretty much just tortured her, I would say. And it was always something so minor, like the towel incident. She said in another instance that she gave a story is she was learning the piano, and he was very, very insistent on her learning the piano. So she was learning the piano, and he would sit and make her do the lessons over and over and over. And she said one time, you know, if she was doing them and she hit the wrong note, it would start. He would degrade her. He would call her names. He would hit her. You know, just so simple, so minor. A wrong note, a wrong towel. I mean, but to me, it was all the same. If she did, he thought she was disrespecting her. Or disrespecting him, excuse me. So, dude has some serious issues. She said that, this is going to be another moment. I'm going to go off camera, but when I come back, this is a pretty awful story. Okay, so I want to start by saying, and I never do this in these stories because it's really irrelevant, but I'm going to tell you, I don't talk about the race. Truthfully, it doesn't matter in these stories. But in this case, because of what she's getting ready to deal with being so traumatic, I think I should let you know she is African American. The whole family is. Dad, mom, all of them. And the reason I say that will become clear, but I want you to understand the terror that she's feeling when he does this. And so when she starts to tell this story on camera, she literally asks to stop because she doesn't want to cry on camera. That's how traumatic it is. So, and I found it kind of wrong because I've seen this happen. And I've seen them get up, walk away, or the camera cut for a minute and whatever, but they don't do that in this case. They literally continue to watch Crystal as she's struggling to keep it together to tell this story. So, her mother gave her this doll, and she loved this doll. Her doll's name was Molly. Molly went everywhere with her. Molly was her best friend. Molly was a little sister she didn't have, and she talks about all this, you know. She slept with it every night. She did everything with it besides take it to school, you know, obviously. But she said one night, and it doesn't say, or she doesn't say what she did that could have made her dad so mad. She doesn't lead up to that. It could have been nothing. There might not have been a thing that this poor girl did that made her dad so mad to do this. But one night she woke up and her dad was in the room with her, which, creepy in itself. He's sitting beside her watching her. And then she rolls over and she sees Molly being hung by a noose off her like bookshelf. And she just screams and screams and screams. And he's laughing. And he's telling her, Molly's dead. I killed Molly. What are you going to do? And he just, over and over and over, torturing her about this doll that he had hung in her room in front of her. So when she woke up, she would see it. But he had to make sure he was in the room with her so he can see her reaction. He wanted to see the torture that he was inflicting on her. And she said she would sit every night with Molly out looking out the window, and they would talk, and she'd tell Molly her secrets. But she would say every night she'd pray that her mom would come home safe, because if something happened to her mom, she would be left with her father all by herself, and she couldn't have thought of anything worse. How flippin' awful, right? Just, yeah. And okay, I want to say the worst thing is, but honestly, I'm torn. So the worst thing, Alice had no clue that her daughter was being abused. But would the worst thing be that she knew and stayed? I don't know. However, Alice apparently did not realize that he was abusing their daughter that way. So, and he would always do it when she was at work or away or something. But, yeah, Alice did, according to what they told us, Alice had no idea this was going on. So now we're back to Alice, and she's telling a story of how William became obsessed with the single lady that had moved in next door to them. So, like, this is their house, and they lived over here. He would sit and stare at this window at this house with this lady. And she's like, she thought it was odd. Really? I mean, at what point does it stop becoming odd and start becoming very much what it is, which is creepy, uncalled for, just all kinds of fun things like that. So anyways, he'd become obsessed with that house, and he'd watch it forever, and she would ask him, what are you doing, what's going on? And he'd tell her it's none of her business, and he'd walk away or whatever, per the reenactment. So one day she was at work, and Crystal was at home and called her mother 911, which they had beepers. So this again tells you that the time type period, excuse me. But she beeped her mom and put 911 over it, which we all know means it's an emergency. So Alice called her daughter and asked her what was going on. And Crystal proceeds to tell her that Daddy wouldn't let me go to school today, so I'm here, but he's acting funny. He is walking up and down the stairs in the hallway, pacing, and he has on a black mask. Okay. So Alice, not sure what's going on, tells her daughter, go up to your room and stay in there. Don't come out of your room till I get home, right? So before they hung up, and not long after, Crystal pages her again, neither 911. So she calls back thinking, oh my God, what's going on? What happened to my daughter? Yada, yada, yada. And she's telling her that the police are across the street, that the woman next door had jumped out of her window because there was an intruder she was trying to get away from, and the police were over there. So, you know, obviously Alice is just confused, not knowing what's going on, and none of it makes sense. All of it's kind of weird. So when she comes home that night, she's asking her husband, hey, what happened? I heard da-da-da-da. And he said, yeah. She said, there was an intruder, and she jumped out of her window to get away from him, and, you know, she's in the hospital, whatever. They never gave an update. I'm assuming she was okay. They never really said what happened to the neighbor. But, so, Alice is like, well, did they come over here? Did they talk to you? What'd they say? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, nobody came over here. Nobody said anything. And then she asked him about the mask that he had on. He's like, oh, well, I always had an answer. I always had some kind of answer, right? But he was like, yeah, I was working in the yard, and I didn't want the dust flying up in my face, and so I wore the mask. Now, per the episode, he was just done talking after that. He had nothing else to say. He walked away. But Alice asked their daughter to show her the mask that he had on. And the mask that they showed us in the reenactment was one of those full face, like fleece that has the eyes and the mouth cut out, and the part from your nose. And I'm just going to say that it's not necessarily a mask you wear when you're doing yard work and don't want to get. It's a intruder mask. I mean, it's clearly something's wrong. But he didn't want to talk about it anymore. He walked away. He was adamant. Everything was fine. Nothing was going on. And she let it drop. As usual. Okay, so Alice then tells us a story. That one night, William came home after his walk, and he was gone for hours. And she doesn't know, like she said, doesn't know how long he's going to be on these walks. He doesn't know if he's even coming home. He's disappeared for days before. So her and Crystal went on and ate supper. And they ate some leftovers, so she didn't fix anything, right? And had nothing ready for him when he come home. And that pissed him off. She didn't have supper ready. And he grabbed her and started pushing her around, and it's the first time he actually laid hands on her. And he kept saying things like, I'm the man of the house, and she was not to disrespect. I mean, that was a big thing for him, not to be disrespected. He was the man of the house. And she said it was like he was a completely different person. And that was the moment she knew there was no turning back for him, and she had to get her and Crystal out of the house. So, perfect, yes. But that's why I'm also saying I don't think she, even though it tells us this, I don't think she knew that William was abusing their daughter, because I think she would have pulled him and they left. I mean, the first time he laid hands on her, she was done. She left. She took her daughter, and they moved. And, this is kind of weird, because when she packed to leave, she really thought William was going to kill him. So she packed some stuff. She went back to her bedroom to get shoes, she said. And William was sitting in there on the bed, holding the gun, just staring into outer space. And she was really just scared. So I'm really confused here, because in the reenactment it shows her that even though he's got this gun and she's scared, she goes on in the room, gets her shoes, and leaves. And I'm like, hell no, if he has a gun, I would have gone out barefooted. I wouldn't have even put myself in that position, or my child. But she got her shoes, they left. So she said he never moved. He never even acknowledged that he saw them or her. And she said it was like he was in a trance. But I think she got very lucky that day. I really think she risked going in there to get shoes, and it could have really ended badly. But Crystal's telling us that she was so glad. I mean, finally leaving the house and her dad, and she couldn't get out fast enough. She didn't want her mom to get those shoes. She didn't want anything to stop them from leaving. She wanted to go. She said she was just terrified that if they didn't go now, they never would. So then we find out for sure that 1988 is when Alice left William. So this is all building up. It doesn't tell us how old Crystal was, but like I said, the reenactment shows her preteen to teenage years. So they've been there. She'd been married to him for a number of years, which I will get into, and dated him for a number of years too. Again, I will get into. So she says, then it comes in, and I'm guessing when she left, that was it. There was no contesting the marriage. There was no, divorce, nothing. Because the next thing it says, it was 14 years after Alice left William with Crystal, that Crystal come in one day and asked her mom if she had heard what happened to William. And of course, Alice is like, I haven't had contact with him, haven't talked to him, haven't seen him in 14 years since I left that day. And Crystal tells him that he was arrested for rape and was in jail. So they learned that William had rigged up a van that he was using to pick up women and ended up killing them. So he would entice these women into the van, he would torture and assault them, and then murder them. So he had been living a secret life for quite a while that no one had been aware of. So this is weird to me. She says the coroner showed up one day at her house. So she's divorced. She has nothing to do with William, but the coroner's showing up and she's thinking that he's there to tell her that William's dead. And again, I'm like, is that really what the coroner does? I really don't know, but I thought it was very, very odd. But he is there, but he wants to discuss the assaults with Alice. So the assaults William had committed, he wants to talk to her. So again, it made me think more like he was a detective instead of a coroner, but she clearly said the coroner showed up. It's weird. Alice let him in, obviously, but she had no idea of any of the assaults and murders. But she finds out during this little discussion, interview, whatever it is that she's doing with the coroner, that his first assault and murder happened that Easter weekend when he disappeared for 3 days. So she knew something was going on, but obviously had no idea. And I can say that wouldn't have been my first thought either, going, if stuff like this had happened. So I get it. But she's now sitting here looking at pictures, and she's looking at a picture of the second girl he killed, and she's talking about how young she was, and she was really young. She showed a picture, and she said that it looked a lot like her at that age. And, funny thing is, it really did, because they put up a side-by-side of Alice at that age and this picture of this lady, or this girl he killed, and there was a lot of resemblance. Talk about skin tone and eyes and just features. So she was really started wondering, was he trying to kill her every time he killed these women? It's a horrible thing to consider, a horrible thing to even think, but that was where she was at. She's like, was he trying to kill me? And because I'm the mother of his child, he can't kill me, so he's killing these other women. So, yeah, that's just pretty devastating all in all. So William was sentenced to death for the assaults and murders, and as of 2017 was still on death row. I will check the current status of this once I do my little internet search. So Alice says she feels terrible for the victims, which we all do. We all would in her position. And she says she feels responsible. She said she had she known the truly horrific person her husband was, she may have been able to do something to save them. And at this point, I think the only thing I can say is if she had known and left, she, could have saved her some heartache, could have saved her daughter some heartache. She could not have saved the women he murdered. He was going to do that no matter what. But that's just my opinion. So I don't think she can take the blame for this. I really don't. You see it a lot in survivors, the survivor guilt. But I hate that. So she says that her and her daughter have nightmares still this day of this man. And they were just as victimized. They were by him than the women he raped and murdered. But, they lived with it in and out every day. So, that's tough. So Alice is saying, he was evil. And the forgiveness should be given to those that show remorse. William never showed remorse. So she thought his sentence, his death penalty sentence, was correct. It was the right punishment for the crimes. Especially for someone that doesn't show remorse. So no forgiveness should be given, is what she's saying. She said she'll never make peace with William or forgive him for what he has done. Yeah, I get that. So the episode ends with Alice saying that whoever sees this episode, she wants them to know that there is nothing that mother and daughter can't conquer together. I feel that to myself because my daughter and I are extremely close. And I'm glad that through all this terror and even the abuse that Crystal suffered, they stayed close. Because apparently to this, right now, they live together and Crystal has a child and they raise them all together. So they've stayed together and they're raising Crystal's daughter with the same closeness that Alice and Crystal had that got them through this terror. So, okay, internet search time. And I searched William Choice. And I'm still saying that's how you pronounce his last name. But, okay, so I searched him. The first site that came up was murderpedia.org. And I really do like this site. It's funny. I use it a lot. Here's the basic information that I see. He was classified as a serial killer. Characteristic was serial rapist. He had 3 victims he murdered. Dates of murder, April 1988, which, like I said, that was his first murder. That weekend he disappeared. Then there's a huge gap, which is really weird to me. So I guess that I didn't do the math, but after she left, so that 14-year gap, he didn't murder again until July and August of 1997. It's uncharacteristic, and I'm wondering if there's something in between there that nobody knows. He was born in 1954, 1954, which make him 67 right now. So he murdered by shooting them, and they lived in California, and he did get sentenced to death on December 5th, 2008. So now I'm reading an article dated December 15th, 2008, so it was after his execution. And it's on the same site, the Murderpedia. And it's talking about the 3 victims, and it states that all 3 victims were prostitutes. And when Choice picked them up, he bound their hands and feet and assaulted them sexually by gunpoint before shooting them execution style and dumping their bodies. What a peach he was. He was also sentenced to 81 years and 4 months to life for kidnapping and assaulting another woman at gunpoint, but he didn't kill her. She testified against him, saying that she was sure he was going to kill her. And 3 other women testified that they had been assaulted at gunpoint as well and let go. So there might have been a big gap between his first murder and his second and third, but in between, he was a busy boy. He just didn't murder them. And I don't know why he went to murder. It must have just really been the situation, been how much the girls fought, how much he lost control. I really don't know, but it's the only thing I can think of. How do you have 3 that you killed, but you let 4 go? So, in this article, it says the defense tried to use that Choice was raised by an abusive mother who beat him every day and who warped him into the man with a sexual disorder that took it out on women. I don't even know where to go with that. I mean, awful that he might have been an abused kid. And he turned around and did the same thing. But how does sexual assault where did that come from? I don't know. Was there sexual assault with the mother? Was there seems to be a whole lot more there. I don't think I found much more. So it states that no one spoke on Williams' behalf at his hearing other than his attorneys, who was trying to use this defense for him. It states that there was no reaction from Choice when the jury came back with a death sentence. He had already been found guilty of the 1997 assault and murder of 2 women from Stockton, California, and the assault and murder of the woman from Oakland, California. So he never went to Reno. Reno was a joke. Reno was whatever. It's all California. Okay, the prosecutor in this case referred to Choice and the killings as, quote, Ted Bundy type behavior, end quote. So the next article I clicked on that caught my attention, it was titled Child Abuse Molded Killer. Now, I am not here to disagree or agree with this statement. There's tons of paid professional people that can debate this better than I can. So I'm not even going to go there. Obviously, I have my opinions, as do you, and that's fine. But we're just going to talk about this article. And as I said, I knew there was going to be a little bit more with the mother story with Choice, and this is what it was about. But it really doesn't say. Here's the thing. I was really, really ready to read this article, really to find it, and I couldn't get it to load. So I don't know what happened, because I tried it on a tablet, I tried it on my phone, I tried it on a computer. Couldn't get this article to load, so it kind of just left me hanging. It wasn't nice. I didn't like that at all. So doesn't look like I'm going to get anything else on the mother, and mother story with William because I tried so many different ways to get this article and couldn't. So then I went on mirror.co.uk and it was titled Twisted Rapist Dad Not Satisfied with Sex Attacks. These little titles, they draw you right in. So I'm sorry, I didn't even finish it. It said rapist or twisted rapist dad not satisfied with sex attacks turned into serial killer. That was a long title, but it got my interest. So in this article, I feel that he and Alice were, I read that him and Alice were teenagers when they met and started dating when he became best friends with Alice's brother. And that's the first time and only time any outside family is mentioned other than the mother and William. So they dated for 4 years before marrying. And 2 years after they married, they had Crystal, which doesn't make sense. Because in this episode, it says they moved in together because she got pregnant. It doesn't. Then it says she married him even after she found him with a prostitute in their bed. So there's some conflicting stories there, but just telling you what I'm seeing. So one thing that wasn't in this episode that I'm reading is that in 1985, William was arrested for soliciting a prostitute and had to call Alice to pick him up from the police station. So according to the article, that's when the marriage fell apart. She left in 1988, if you remember, so might have been the final nail in that coffin. I don't know. To me, the prostitute in my bed would have been. So something else that I'm reading that's not in this episode is William had a son with his new girlfriend after Alice left. And Crystal, when she was 16, decided to move back in with her dad and try to repair their relationship. Doesn't state much about it, doesn't say much. It says, though, it didn't take long before she moved back in with her mother, so it didn't go well. It states also that while William was in prison, he apologized to Crystal for the abuse. So he did admit the abuse. He did try to make amends with it. I don't know how well that went. I'm trying to find this is really the sad thing. I'm trying to find about the victims. And it's difficult because they were all night workers. You know, women of the street. There was not much about them. But I do kind of have a guideline and I do have names. So, but I don't have much more personal information about the girls. So it says April 3rd, 1988, the weekend he disappeared. That doesn't make sense because he disappeared before then. The timeline doesn't make sense to me. It's either the episode or this timeline is messed up. This says Oakland police found the body of Victoria Bell, who had been raped and murdered. And then July 2nd, 1997, Gwendolyn Lee's body was found in San Joaquin County. And I know I just really butchered that, and I'm sorry. August 11th, 2007. See, that doesn't make sense. That has to be 1997. August 11th, 1997. I had to type that wrong. LaWanda Beck's body was found in Stockton. So there's the 3 murders. We've got Victoria Bell, Gwendolyn Lee, and LaWanda Beck. Literally, that's all I can find. Nothing else can be said about it. So in 2003, Choice was convicted of 2 rapes in Oakland and sentenced to 11 years in jail. 2005, DNA evidence links Choice to 3 prostitute rapes and the 1 murder. 2008, his trial begins, and August 11th, he's convicted of murder. September 18th, he gets the death sentence. And December 15th, judge sentenced Choice to death. So jury gives him death, and then the judge goes through with it. So that's literally it. That's all that's mentioned of the victims. No family, no anything about them, and it's really, really sad. Just very, very sad. So now I'm seeing that Alice, it looks like her and Crystal published a novel titled Conquering Darkness, Memoir of the Serial Killer's Wife. Comes out, looked like it came out in 2013, and it says that mother and daughter loved writing together so much that they have decided to write more books, and these will be fiction instead of, true stories. But the Red River Daughter was due out later in 2013, which is going to be their first fiction novel. So the reviews on Conquering Darkness are varied. I haven't read it. I didn't even realize it existed until I did this internet search. So take it as it is. Some people like true crime, some don't. Some want to be told the story, some want to live the story. It's just your choice. So, and Crystal does have a LinkedIn page, but she is listed as an indie author. So that's really it as far as what I can find on them. I wish them the best. Crystal does have I think it's a son? No, a daughter. She has a daughter. And Alice lives with them, and they're raising them together. They're doing, they've come through hell. So good for them. I wish them nothing but the best. So that's it for this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Leave me some comments. I'd love to hear from you. And hope you like and share. And please hit that subscribe button. It means the world, and I'd love to grow this page even more. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I will talk to you later. Be safe, be good, and have fun. Goodbye.